Hello, bore da, good morning, and welcome to the headline stage here at Wales Tech Week, and welcome to the second day of our Tech Summit. We're very glad to see you. Obviously, the delays on the M4 are out of our control, but I'm glad you've made it, so thank you for your patience with our delayed start this morning. We have another incredible lineup of speakers for you today. Today's opening keynote speaker is Nick Gliddon, Director of Vodafone Business. Now, he'll be sharing how Vodafone 3's landmark investment is transforming Wales into one of the most connected nations in the world. From Cardiff's fintech scene to rural communities in Eryri and Pembrokeshire, advanced 5G and satellite technology will power innovation, sustainability, and growth, creating opportunities for businesses, public services, and people across Wales. Vodafone Business is a premier and networking partner of Wales Tech Week 2025, supporting Wales Tech Week's vision to bring people, ideas, and technology together to shape the future of Welsh industry. So please welcome Nick Gliddon, Business Director of Vodafone 3, to the stage. Diolch i chi.
I thought I'd start by just reaching out to two people sitting at the back, because they've taken on, Colin and Paul have taken on ownership of the tech, because most of the tech team are stuck on the M4. So when we said we were going to start this, I said, don't worry. You know, they said to me, Nick, don't worry. We've dealt with rock stars, we've dealt with bands, we've dealt with everything, and we probably can deal with you. So there we go. So I'm going to spend around 15 minutes talking about the investment plan that we have for Wales. And I'd like to try and get three things out of the session I'm going to run this morning. First thing is I'm going to try and explain our thought process, what we're going to do, and how we drive that. And I'm going to try and do that around ideas, ambition, and then I'm going to try and make a call to action. Because what I'm actually going to ask you to do is help me spend £600 million. Some of you are thinking that could be pretty easy. But in asking you to help me spend that £600 million and that investment, I'm also asking us, can we turn for every £1 we invest into 7 as a benefit for Wales? So that 600 million of investment that we're going to make, can we turn that into 4.2 million of value for Wales? So Wales Tech Week is built around 3 themes: tech for people, tech for performance, tech for planet. It's about how technology shapes lives, drives businesses, supports a more sustainable future. Anna Corrin, as the Minister, will come and talk a little bit about that, one of her passions. But I want to really start around where we perhaps are today. Some of you I've known in previous lives will know I spent most of my life working outside of the UK. Came back to the UK 5 years ago. Last 4 years I've been in this role. And I spent a lot of time in Wales. And I think one of the things that I would really say is that we really see value in what's happening in Wales today. So I want to start with where we are today, where we will then make the investments in Wales, the 600 million, and then what are the things are we maybe need to work together and with a call to action. So first things, I would say Wales is a thriving hub of innovation and industry today. If I think about my engagement in Cardiff, you know, the fintech and the creative media sector, if you think about Swansea, whether it's sport tech, whether it's digital health, whether it's advanced manufacturing, if we think where we are in Newport today, you would talk about cyber maybe, you talk about semiconductor. So the challenge we don't start from an area of what we need to invent. We start from excellence today. But we ran our customer advisory board in Wales on Friday. We had 50 customers. They came, they gave us feedback. And one of the challenges they gave us is, okay, how can you help us scale? How can you deliver digital infrastructure across Wales that allows us to be consistent in our investment, confident in our investment, and be disruptive in our investment? So the engagement that we've had with Wales as Vodafone historically and Three, and now as Vodafone 3, is not new. We've got a strong track record of working in Wales. One of the things, though, I don't think we tell is we don't tell the story well enough. And that's a problem for us, but I would also suggest it's a problem for all of us in this room. If I was to say to you, did you know that in Wales this year we have had 2 world firsts? 2 world firsts. The first was a direct-to-device satellite call from Cumbraon Mountains to our CEO, Margarita Delaval, in Newbury. That's the first call in the world where we made that call as a direct satellite call. What does that mean? It means it rings your mobile phone. You don't need to put any equipment, anything different between that. World first for Wales. The second, February, Principality Stadium, Wales versus Ireland, first dual slice in the world. What does that mean? We sliced the network. We turned it into 2 slices, one for fan experience, live streaming, live commentary, better experience in the stadium. Second, for the photographers, for the media within the stadium, giving them a slice which gave them guaranteed access. They could upload content, real time, better performance for them. Again, first time that's ever been done in the world. We did it in February. Did you all know that? Is that part of what we're doing? So I think one of the things we aren't doing is we aren't telling the stories enough about the investment we're making and the innovation that we're delivering. Second thing we talk a little bit about is national parks and using the national parks and the technology to restore habitat and enhance visitor experience. Again, Pembrokeshire Coast National Park. Natural resource for Wales using IoT sensors, real-time monitoring, rivers, forests, coastlines, ensuring that for generations to come, we protect what's there. And again, Wales is unique, Future Generations Act, different to where we are in the rest of the world. So those 2 elements for me, whether you think about it private sector business or whether you think about public sector, are key areas. But the third area is academia. There's a lot taking place in universities in Wales, be it in Bangor or actually in Swansea. Again, in Swansea, Swansea University and Swansea Bay University Health Board, first 5G living labs. So that spans hospitals, campuses, community sites. If you think about the political leadership that Wales has taken or the strategic decisions Wales has taken on healthcare to treat more in the community versus hospitals, what Swansea Bay University, what Swansea's doing and Swansea Bay University Health Board's doing is unique in taking that and creating that as living labs. And those 5G labs are the first of the kind, we believe, in the world. So it's real-time health monitoring, wearable tech, next-generation agnostics, cutting-edge research. And one of the big differences is they're taking the research they're doing in sport and applying it, and sports science, and applying it to health and mental health care. And again, I think that's unique. And again, I think that's something we can think through, because if you think traditionally how you would deploy those services through clinical trials or healthcare release, whereas actually a lot of the treatment we're seeking now is not in hospital, but might actually be in the home. So, real changes and real deployment of services today. And the final one is an announcement we just made this morning, which I'm really pleased. I think Richard Lancaster's in the audience. Richard, hi, from Ospreys. So Ospreys will take 5G MPN, mobile private network. They'll deploy that into the St Helens Stadium in Swansea. That makes that stadium one of the most advanced technically in the UK. It will make it great for kind of experience, for merchandising, for actually running the mechanics of the stadium. But it's also unique in the way that they're going to offer that technology out to the community. This is an asset for the community. Those of you that want a 5G mobile private network in Swansea, Richard's your man. He'll be able to sort that out. Sorry, Richard. But that whole investment is in the way that that's made, not only will make Ospreys more competitive and more agile in terms of the way they operate their business, but it's contributing to the community that they operate within. Now, we've done this elsewhere in the world, but not to the extent that Osprey is going to do. And you can start to think about, if you have a GP surgery that's very close to the stadium, well, why can't they use those services? How does that make that GP surgery more digital? How could it make education more digital? How do you build that community in the way that you can create that? So I said I wanted to start with 3 things. I wanted to start with ideas. I hope you see there's lots of ideas taking place today, but the challenge that I get, and I genuinely get a challenge, is, yeah, but we can't scale those ideas, or we don't have confidence in executing those ideas because we can't be guaranteed on the connectivity, or if we've created something, how do we scale it? And I'll give you some examples. And I rewrote this speech on Friday after the customer advisory board because I threw out my ideas and I just took the customer ideas and I put them in later. So I'll go on and talk about those. I want to talk then, okay, if that's the ideas, what's the ambition and what are we actually doing? So I mentioned it before, we want to unlock 4.2 billion of economic value because we believe 1 million of investment should drive £7 of benefit. So £1 of investment, sorry, should drive £7 of benefit. It's based off the largest private sector investment in Wales. That's 600 million. We believe that's the largest private sector that we will make. And I'll give you a bit more detail on that. So, Paul, if you just hold the facts and figures for the moment, I'll just do the slide first. That means Wales gets a higher per capita investment. Why? Because if you're building network in Wales, because of the geographic coverage, you need to put more money in. It's harder. You have more mountains, you have slightly more rural, you need to put more coverage in. It does need a collaborative approach to building and planning. I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight that in certain areas in Wales, if you put a planning permission in, or a planning request in, or a planning notification in, 86% of those notifications are rejected in particular districts. 86%. So we need to be better about putting those in and understand why. But if you reject 86% of planning requests, you aren't going to build this network. So we need some help to do that. And then I think the final piece that I would really call out is this is a legal and regulatory investment that's monitored, and we will be monitored by Ofcom to deliver that investment. It's very rare in my history as a telecoms industry executive that I've called out a regulator, but I would call out the regulators in the way that they constructed the merger for us as Vodafone 3. They've placed obligation on us to deliver, but they've also placed obligation on us to make investment. They placed obligation on us to diverse some of the spectrum so we have a more competitive market. And then they've also put a legal obligation and a regulatory obligation on us to deliver. And if you look in Europe and you look and talk to my colleagues in Germany and some of the other countries across Europe, other regulators in Europe have seen what we've done in the UK, recognised that, and are thinking about how they could deploy that into their own country. So it's great, and I'm sure you would take me at face value and trust me that this is the investment we're going to make. But even if you don't take me at face value, I have to make that investment because I'm legally and regulatory obligated to do so. So what does that actually mean? It basically means, for those of you that live in Wales, who lives in Wales? Yeah, I'm going to give equivalent to £200 per person in Wales. That's what the investment means. It means that essentially 99% of the Welsh population, that's over 3 million people, will enjoy reliable quality connection. It will remove 1,700 square kilometres of not spots, and it will mean 88,000 people that we don't believe have coverage today would get coverage. It covers 170 schools, it covers 100 healthcare locations. So for example, a GP surgery would be covered in that. That's the investment that we'll be making. And we think if we do that, and certainly the customers challenged me on Friday when we talked to them at the customer advisory board, they believe that would give them confidence having digital infrastructure across Wales. And I'll give some examples coming up on that. But in parallel with that, we're co-creating Europe's first direct-to-satellite service. We're not relying on a third party. We've got an equity agreement with AST Space Mobile, and that means that we'll have satellite capability, and that connectivity reaches where traditional networks cannot reach, from Cumbrian Mountains to Pembrokeshire Coast. You don't need specialist equipment. That will go direct to device. That could be mobile phone, or it could be a machine, it could be IoT. If you can see the sky, we can give you connectivity. And with that comes resilience. So if there's issues on the ground, extreme weather, that keeps us connected. But the point I would want to make, that's in addition. Satellite is not a substitute. It's a strategic layer that amplifies the 600 million. So we build 5G standalone and we put satellite on. And then the third thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about Wales's role and how we can kind of connect Wales to the world. It sounds a rather pretentious and grandiose statement, but my background is I built subsea cable systems. That's where I came from before I came to the UK. And I want to talk a little bit about, I'm sure you've all seen the North Wales AI growth zone announcements, strategic location, quite a large-scale investment from a government and a public policy perspective. None of you are going to be surprised when I tell you that Wales is reasonably geographically located to Ireland. Ireland has a problem. It's traditionally been one of the key centres for data centres in Europe. It has a power problem. There's not enough power. You can't build data centres in Ireland at the moment. There's a challenge. You can build data centres in Wales. As we speak, we are currently building duct and fibre from Pembrokeshire to Newport. Why? Because we are connecting up a significant number of those data centres through subsea systems from Wales, from Ireland into Wales, across Wales, through Merthyr, and then down into Newport. There's an opportunity, we believe, to expand that and scale that. If you look at the UK as a whole, 60 fibre systems coming into the UK, around a third of those are getting towards end of life. Majority of those come into southwest England. If you look across southwest England, you see the Welsh coast. There's no reason for diversity of supply and requirement why you can't create subsea systems and investment into Swansea or Swansea Bay, around that, Oxwich Bay. And then secondly, on top of that, we're also talking to a number of consortia about subsea systems that could land into Wales when you think about replacement of those systems that are, whether they're transatlantic or other elements. So Wales at this moment in time sits at a pretty good place in terms of the investment plan we're making on 5G standalone, on satellite, which would fill in, and then you've also got pretty significant fibre. So if you think about this, and I often attend dinners, they wheel me out occasionally because I've worked all around the world, and I come and they bring me as somebody that suggests to third-party companies why you should invest in the UK. First question that companies typically ask is, give me digital infrastructure, give me capability. Wales is on the cusp of having one of the best digital infrastructures in Europe. Now, given I've asked you to amplify that and asked you to say, can we turn every pound of investment into 7, I better start talking about what that investment might be or what that investment might look like. So given I've got 7 times multiplier, I've gone with 7 sectors. So I've gone with construction, manufacturing, real estate, finance, insurance, health and social care, agriculture, arts, entertainment, hospitality. There's 7 segments that we think, looking across there, that if you deploy digital, if you base that infrastructure, you'll get real benefit. And what I then did was I had some really, fantastic numerical examples that we've created as Vodafone 3. But I ripped that up on Saturday morning after listening to customers on Friday. And I'm going to just tell the stories that the customers told me on Friday after we presented this plan in a bit more detail to them. Health. We talk about moving from a medical, this came from an email that one of the customers sent me on Saturday morning. We talk about moving from a medical model to a social model, but most of my investment still sits in treatment. Prevention means new ways to engage people, influence behaviour, connect them, support them outside of the healthcare system. Lifestyle changes can even reverse conditions like diabetes. The challenge is reaching people who need it most. Solutions that encourage healthy habits, peer support, and use of advanced analytics will make a real difference. We have a number of trials and pilots that are all being stopped because we can't scale connectivity and we can't scale reach. To many people in long-term conditions, they end up in hospital where safe, proven tech could allow them to be treated at home, could allow them to remain in their homes. On some of the trials and some of the deployments that we've got, sensors exist, but it's actually the confidence in connectivity that prevents patients, families, doctors giving reassurance and deploying that treatment in the home. And the example that the customer gave was if you think about frailty and respiratory disease, easy for me not to say, conditions where monitoring environment's really important, environmental data to trigger intervention is really important. That would be one of the first areas of focus and areas I think deployment is probably the right word. To take action, why can't we do that? We then had a number of hospitality companies and companies talking to us about sustainability and just very simply EV charging and EV adoption and rural tourism. And they just really criticise the fact that if you today in certain parts of Wales, you cannot be confident that the application you have that allows you to charge will work, will have a connectivity. Poor coverage means hesitation to invest in greener tech. We had a number of companies that were debating, do they invest in electric vehicles for their field force, not prepared to do it because their field force works in parts of the country where they can't be confident they can charge, or they can't be confident that it would be easy for that tech individual to get access. So again, real challenges for that. And they really challenged us by saying, listen, fellas, great what you're talking about, but your coverage has to be part of the furniture, has to be there, has to be reliable. And if it is reliable, we can invest, we can develop, and we can partner. Smarter, more connected public buildings, real-time data to manage use in council buildings. We had quite a few councils there on Friday. Again, really challenging us on that. And then I hesitate to talk about transport, given the joys that we've all had this morning getting here. But, you know, there was real talk from around real-time fleet tracking, predictive maintenance, seamless passenger experience, whether that's on rural bus or main lines or on the M4 this morning, right? That ability to deliver and drive that, I think, is really important. The other point that I think I would make, and this is more of a technical point, but I think it's really quite important, is we see, and I see personally as a board director of Vodafone, I absolutely see cyber being a real problem at the moment, and third parties, bad actors, external third parties outside of the UK, really challenging the way we've built our networks, the way we communicate, the way you've built your solutions and your applications. 5G standalone is encrypted end-to-end. It removes, particularly for small, medium-sized enterprise businesses, that requirement to understanding how each element connects. And particularly in operating systems and particularly in applications that are running large-scale tech, we see end-to-end 5G being a real difference on that. So security is a real key requirement, and it's also a key challenge for a lot of our customers as well. So if that's the opportunity, what are the things we need to do to turn into action? Talked before, you can see on the slide, well, if you want to bring the slide back, sorry, we've made the commitment, policymakers and planners. We've got investment, we are going to make that investment. One of the things we asked the customers to do was to feedback where that investment should be, where the priorities should be, how we make that investment, how do we drive that. Planning is essential for us. I don't want to highlight the fact, if we don't get planning takes too long, and Wales is probably one of the most advanced countries in the UK to do that. I think on average planning in the UK is planning in Wales is about 9 months, 10 months. But too many planning applications are rejected first time. I think as public sector leaders, I would encourage, how do you make 5G, cloud and data part of service design, not an afterthought? And how do we drive that? And also, how do we enable through API or enable you to design onto the network? That's something that we have to do. For entrepreneurs and SME, I think the productivity prize is real. We've got advanced connectivity, we can help you innovate. But again, how do you compete globally? And then finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about investment. We're building the network. It's our accountability to build the network. It's our accountability to bring that digital capability. But we need to be open and allow you to think about what that might enable. My background is I spent 5 years in India. I spent 5 years in India from 2015 to 2020 when it went through a pretty dramatic digital revolution. We built a pretty big digital network. The whole industry did, to be fair. And what that did was it moved an informal economy to be more formal, but it also influenced elements like payments, like education, like healthcare, like citizen engagement. It made real significant changes to the way that the Indian economy worked, and it created sectors and opportunities that weren't in existence before. One of the things we did as a telecoms operator at that time was we opened that up and we created innovation hubs where people could come and talk to us about what you wanted to build on the network, or how the network changed, or the digital capability changed the way that you operated, process, systems, people. We're building the network, but to make it truly work for Wales, we need your insight, your partnership, and we need to collaborate with you. So we have a program of events that we're now starting, be that customer advisory boards, being present today, being at the investment summit next week. You'll see a load more coming in January around how we would ask you to come and talk and engage with us and leverage the investment that we're making. Finally, I want to finish with a couple of elements around, it struck me coming back to Celtic Manor. I hadn't been to Celtic Manor I haven't been to the ICC for a long time, been away. But when you think about Celtic Manor and where you go from, you can't think any more than Terry Matthews, right? I think Terry was here earlier, so Terry as he now is, right? And Terry came from the telecommunications industry. But if you think about his history was he built a series of businesses, you know, all the way from Newbridge Networks, sold for 7 billion, but he built that in Wales, and he had that saying, which is, I think, you can't think, you have to think globally, even if you start locally. And I'm always struck when I come here, you know, you see Celtic Manor and you see that, that whole requirement of build. It's iconic in terms of what was created in Wales. And I'm always struck also by kind of working for Vodafone. Vodafone didn't quite start, we don't have a Celtic Manor house, but Vodafone started behind an Indian restaurant in Newbury and became one of the biggest telecoms companies in the world, right? And if you think about the legacy that's here, it seems to me that as we're starting to make some pretty significant investment in Wales, there's a great opportunity for all of us in this room to really drive that capability and deliver real value for Wales. It's always a bit dangerous when somebody stands on stage and says, this is what will happen. Trust me, we're going to make investment. Trust me, we've got all these capabilities. I have seen it done in other countries. I have seen India do it. I've seen Egypt do it during revolution. My advice is let's not do revolution. But the digital transformation that came as part of revolution was absolutely stunning. 600 million of investment is a regulated investment. It is a legal and regulatory commitment. You can have confidence if you build and partner with us that we will make that investment. I hope I've demonstrated right at the start through some of the ideas that we've also got a track record of delivering in Wales so far. And I'm really pleased to be here to announce today all of that investment and ask for your help, your collaboration and your partnership to turn 600 million to 4.2 billion. Thank you very much.